This is Abdul Khader, once again welcoming you to the next interactive class on professional ethics and Indian Constitution. In this class, we'll be starting Unit 5. This Unit 5 is on human rights. The human right was, is, and will always remain a burning issue. This is because the human right violations are so widespread in this world. Many times, these violations, the governments are responsible for the human right violations. The human right violations increase their gravity when it is abated, supported, or condoned by the governments. At the same time, there is increasing awareness of human rights, and human rights activists are more active than ever all over the world. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by United Nations, is a cornerstone of the human rights movement all over the world. In this unit, in addition to human right, we'll also be discussing women's right and the justification for affirmative action. Whistleblowing is another complex issue which we'll be discussing in this unit. In this unit, we will also be discussing the intellectual property rights and the instruments of intellectual property rights such as the patents, the trademarks, the trade secrets, the copyrights, etc. We will also be looking into the constitutional provisions for protecting the rights of the women and children. In this unit, in today's class, we will focus on the human rights. We'll be looking into the human rights, and we'll also be discussing specific human rights in great detail. And I'll be making use of a number of videos to stress the point, to make a clearer understanding of the human rights. Let me first have a quick review of the content, what I'm going to make in today's class. Let's have a quick overview. The first, we'll be discussing the concept of human rights. That is, certain basic the issues associated with the human rights. Then we'll be looking into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, what is known as UDHR. Then we'll be discussing a number of specific human rights as per UDHR. Finally, we'll be looking at the human rights as applicable to the profession. Finally, as usual, we'll be having an interactive quiz where you can participate and provide your answers. So the first question is, what are human rights? A clarity with respect to the concept of human rights is absolutely essential. Human rights can be defined as the moral entitlements that place obligations on other people to treat one with dignity and respect. So that is, these are the defensive rights. These are the obligations which puts moral entitlement on other people to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And in any organization, everybody needs to be familiar with human rights, especially the engineers. Engineers must necessarily be familiar with the human rights in order to base their actions respecting the human rights of every individual. Now let's start with a small video clip on human rights.
The idea of human rights is that each one of us, no matter who we are or where we are born, is entitled and they cannot be granted or revoked. They are inalienable and universal. That may sound straightforward enough, But it gets incredibly complicated as soon as anyone tries to put the idea into practice. What exactly are the basic human rights? Who gets to pick them? Who enforces them, and how? The history behind the concept of human rights is a long one. Throughout the centuries and across societies, religions, and cultures, we have struggled with defining notions of rightfulness, justice, and rights. But one of the most modern affirmations of universal human rights emerged from the ruins of World War II with the creation of the United Nations. The treaty that established the UN gives as one of its purposes to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. And with the same spirit, in 1948, the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document, written by an international committee chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, lays the basis for modern international human rights law. The Declaration is based on the principle that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. It lists 30 articles recognizing, among other things, the principle of non-discrimination and the right to life and liberty. It refers to negative freedoms, like the freedom from torture or slavery, as well as positive freedoms, such as the freedom of movement and residence. It encompasses basic civil and political rights, such as freedom of expression, religion, or peaceful assembly, as well as social, economic, and cultural rights, such as the right to education and the right to freely choose one's occupation and be paid and treated fairly. The Declaration takes no sides as to which rights are more important, insisting on their universality, indivisibility, and interdependence. And in the past decades, international human rights law has grown, deepening and expanding our understanding of what human rights are and how to better protect them. So if these principles are so well developed, then why are human rights abused and ignored time and time again all over the world? The problem, in general, is that it is not at all easy to universally enforce these rights or to punish transgressors. The UDHR itself, despite being highly authoritative and respected, is a declaration, not a hard law. So when individual countries violate it, to address those violations, in the UN, in charge of protecting human rights, mostly monitor and investigate violations, but they cannot force states to, say,
We have watched an excellent video which gives insight into the different aspects of human rights movement. Let's now look at the human rights from a wider point of view. The human rights are the rights which every human being has. That means all human beings are entitled to human rights, and whatever their nationality, whatever their place of residence, the sexual orientation, the gender, the national or ethnic origin, the color, the religion, the language, and any other status does not come in the way of one's human rights. So human rights are applicable to each and every human being. And these human beings, these human rights are the basic rights of freedom that every person in the world has at all time of his existence on this earth. So that is the applicable right from birth until death. No other qualification is required for human rights except that he is born as a human being. That is, being a human being is the only qualification required for the human rights. Let's discuss a little more about the human rights. The two things are very important with respect to the human rights. One is that the human rights are universal as well as human rights are inalienable. So both these words are critical. When I say universal, what I mean is that it applies to everybody all over the world. It applies to each and every human being. That is about the universality of the human rights. And then the second word is inalienable. That is, these human rights cannot be separated from the individual. You cannot take away the human right of a person by whatever means. Even a person cannot sell his human right. So human right always remains with the human right under whatever the situation. It is universal and inalienable. This universality is a cornerstone of the the human right laws. That is, all over the world, the human right is applicable because of its universality in nature. This universality is reinforced by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted in 1948 by the United Nations. And in addition, it is supported by a number of the the human rights, the conventions, declarations, and resolutions. That is one important feature of human right. The second important feature of human right is that it is interdependent and it is indivisible. That is, if you ask the which right is more important and which right is less important, so that does not apply to human rights. Each and every right is equally important, and the violation of one human right leads to the violation of another human right. That is, human rights are dependent one another and they are indivisible in nature. That is, a number of human rights come into picture: the political rights, the economic rights, part of the human rights, the social rights, the cultural rights. Similarly, right to work, right to social security, all these rights are interdependent and they are indivisible. You cannot say which is more important, which is less important. And we need to remember that the curtailment of one right leads to the curtailment of the other rights. Let's come to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the basic document that was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on 10 December 1948. This is one of the pillars of the human right enforcement all over the world today. That is, coming to the specific resolution, it was resolution 217, which was adopted in France on 10th December 1948. As a matter of interest, at that time, there were the 58 member countries. And out of these 58 member countries of United Nations, the 48 countries voted in favor of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And no nation voted against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 8 countries, they abstained, they didn't attend. And the 2 countries did not vote. So that is the statistics with respect to the people who have supported the 1948, the Declaration of the Human Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights contains 30 articles. These articles are distributed so as to cover all the major human rights. Let's have a quick glance over the different categories of human rights addressed by these articles. It contains a preamble. The preamble is the introductory part which sets out the historical and social the causes that led to the necessity of drafting declaration. That is, historically the need to come to a universal declaration of human right is discussed in the preamble, and after the preamble the articles comes. As I said, there are 30 articles. The article 1 and 2 that discusses the basic concepts, that is, that specifies the basic human rights with respect to the dignity, liberty, equality, and brotherhood. Next set of articles 3 to 5, they established the other individual rights such as the right to life and the freedom from slavery. Article 6 to 11, they specify fundamental legality of the human rights, and they specify the specific remedies which are available for the defense of the human rights when the human rights are violated. We coming to the next set of articles, article the 12 to 17 of the human rights, they established the rights of the individual towards the community. That is, the individual human rights with respect to the community is discussed from article 12 to 17. This includes the freedom such as freedom of movement, freedom of occupation, etc. The article 18 to 21, they specify the rights with respect to the constitutional, the remedies, the constitutional liberties. These liberties include the spiritual rights, the political freedom, and the freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, freedom of the opinion, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, and also the freedom of peaceful association. The next set of articles 22 to 27, they discussed the economic rights, social rights with respect to human rights, the cultural rights of the humans, including the health care, including basic necessities such as food, shelter, and clothing. It also specifies the special care for physical disability, that is for physically challenged people, special care for motherhood and also the childhood. Finally, Article 28 to 30, they established the general ways in which these rights are enforced. This is a quick discussion on the categories of the human rights as specified by Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, let us discuss specific rights with respect to these rights with the interesting video clips.
Children was not born free. Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number one. We are all born free and equal.
That was about the freedom, the human right. That is, we are all born free and equal. We have a right to live in freedom and in equality. That is the first and foremost the human right.
Joe. Steven. There. I'll take him right there. All right, take care. Thank you.
That is human right against discrimination. Discrimination on the basis of religion, caste, creed, language, nationality, or any such consideration is against the basic human rights. All of us have an inherent the human right against discrimination. Discrimination is a violation of the human rights.
It greeted you at birth. It was there for your first step, your first mistake, your first kiss. It's with you when you win, when you lose, when you pick yourself up again. In every moment, you can feel it. Life. Human right number 3, the right to life.
That talks about the right to life. Human life is precious and valuable. Nobody can illegally take away your life. That right to life is an inherent and a very important human right.
Okay, kids, here we are at the slavery exhibit. Now, as you can see, the slaves were kidnapped from their homes, chained together for weeks. They would cram them onto these ships in very appalling conditions.
Women and children are being smuggled.
Sexual trafficking of children. As you can see right here, they were treated like animals. They worked all day long for no pay.
Sweatshops raided by police. Children forced into slave labor.
Some of the slave masters were very cruel. They whipped them and they beat them, as you can see in some of these pictures.
Brutal, even fatal.
So, before moving on, are there any questions?
Does this still happen today?
Human beings are born free, and everybody has a right to live as a free individual. Slavery is a violation of the human right.
When I was walking home from school, they asked me for my money. I said no.
And all my friends ran home because they were scared he might punch them too.
I was screaming, but he just wouldn't stop.
He always said he would hit me. I just didn't think he actually would.
I don't know what I did, but they just kept on kicking me.
They tied me up and dragged me outside. They stripped me of my dignity.
She said she was going to teach me a lesson.
He said I wasn't listening. I didn't think he'd get so mad.
Subjecting a person to any form of torture is violation of his or her human rights. Human rights protects a person from torture. That is the protection against torture is a very important human rights.
Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law.
Equality before law is a very important human right. That is, law is equally applicable to everybody, whether rich or poor, whether a politician, whether an ordinary citizen, whether it is a minister or a bureaucrat. The law is equally applicable to everybody. This is a fundamental human right of every human being.
Yo, this is a story about human rights. For those that don't know, you need to. Yo, a starving artist, but his lyrics so worldwide. His friend and manager was a snake in the sky that he was bitten. His song sold without his permission. Saw his record on the shelf, the snake had stolen his vision. But knowing his rights, he could protect himself. Fair treatment by fair courts, he got the law to help. The other dude just sunk weak, looked like a punk, could hardly open his mouth to speak, popping that jump. You better get up, stand up. If you've been done wrong, you better stand up for your rights like that Marley song. Keep yourself represented, lawfully defended. Know your human rights, don't ever surrender. No, don't ever surrender. Yeah.
That is, the human rights are protected by law. The people have got legal means to protect the human rights, and the countries all over the world have framed laws to protect human rights, and these legal avenues are available to the human beings with respect to the protection of their human rights.
Anybody out there? This isn't right. Why don't you just tell me what I did, please? Somebody just tell me. I should talk to somebody. Let me go.
This human right talks about the right against unfair detention. That is, unfair detention is against the human rights. It is a serious violation of the human rights. That is, nobody can be arrested or detained illegally.
Next case, the People versus Martin White. Mr. White has been charged with... Next case.
But Your Honor, you haven't heard the charges yet.
Guilty. Next case. Guilty. 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 I have been prison. Guilty. Next case.
This human right talks about the right to fair trial. Denial of fair trial is a serious violation of the human rights. Natural justice implies that every person has got a right to defend himself. He has a right to put forth his version of the story, and all aspects of the case must be considered before arriving at a judgment. You cannot punish a person without giving him a fair chance to defend, to prove his innocence. That is, the fair trial is also a fundamental human right.
Chill out. Don't tell me to chill out when
causing a
stealing
scene.
my things?
You're causing a scene.
I wouldn't have to raise my voice if you just give it back and stop being like a criminal.
I don't have your cell phone.
Oh
I don't
God,
have your
listen
cell
to
phone.
yourself. What are you offering?
Is
the
this a
world, huh?
thief's uniform? You see all these people standing around here? Why am I the one? Why
I'm
are you
sorry,
sitting in this
homie. Okay. What? Don't make this a big deal. Just give it back, okay?
Did you see me?
Yes, you know, I just know you took it.
Where are
Look
your
at yourself.
witnesses?
Look at
Where are your
yourself.
witnesses?
I
Did you see me?
Hey, you left us in the bathroom.
So human right implies that we are always innocent till proven by guilty. That is, you cannot accuse a person of a crime without sufficient evidence. Even if the accusation is there, until finally he is proved guilty, the person needs to be considered as innocent. That is his human right.
Oh, it's a letter for today. She wants us to get it. Read it, read it, read it. Read it, 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 read it.
Hey, I think you dropped this.
That is about the right to privacy. Even right to privacy is a human right. Nobody can invade the privacy of another person. Recently, our constitutional bench of the Supreme Court has given a verdict that the right to privacy is also a fundamental right under the Constitution. That is, this maintaining one's privacy is human right.
Where would I go if the world had no limits? If I could defy all boundaries? If I could ride the wind? Where would it take me? If all roads were open to me, where would I go? If I could fly, if I were free to move.
That is human right with respect to movement. Some of the human rights are negative rights, while some are positive rights. The right against detention, the right against torture are negative rights because they prevent others from doing something to you. On the other hand, rights like freedom of movement are positive rights. They empower the person to do something which they wish, something is useful to them.
I'm Chinese.
I am Russian.
I am East African.
I'm Canadian.
I am Filipino.
I am Irish.
I am Bulgarian. Korean. I am American. I am Brazilian. Italian.
Mexican. I'm British.
Swedish. French.
I'm Israeli.
Mongolian. I'm South African.
Japanese.
We are mankind.
Right to nationality is also a human right. No government can deny the nationality to its citizens. You have seen the recent genocide in the ethnic violence in Myanmar against Rohingya Muslims. Myanmar government is refusing to give them citizenship, to which they are entitled. This is a root cause of the problem, which is leading to serious human rights violations in Myanmar. You may be reading about it in these days.
She came up and kissed me one day.
It was an impulse. I just grabbed him and I kissed him on the lips and I ran away.
Because I was like 20 years old. It's not like something you talk about marriage all the time.
But I asked for her number. She wouldn't give me her number.
No, I think he liked me first, for sure.
She's hot. We met at a grocery store.
We were in a class together.
Came up to me one day and says, I got this perfect girl for you.
He was a good dancer, but not too good.
Like he was my soulmate.
She's my queen. Of course, I'm the king.
I said, I have to ask you something. And she said, what? And I kneeled down. And
she was laughing and trembling. She's so embarrassed.
What did I say? I said, will you marry me or will you be my wife?
Will you be my wife? He proposed to me on my birthday.
She said, yes. Are you sure?
I'm sorry.
Right to marriage and the right to have family is also a human right.
I believe in nature.
I believe in the spirit.
I believe in trust, beauty,
I believe in my mom.
Strawberry ice cream.
fortune cookies.
Chocolate. I believe in the tooth fairy.
Being honest with yourself.
I believe in Santa Claus. Aliens, of course.
I believe what I want to believe.
I believe in myself.
I believe in myself.
The freedom of thought is another important human right. This freedom of thought is very important for the human growth. Everybody is free to hold his thoughts and beliefs. So that is his human right. Not only that a person has got the freedom of thought, he has got a freedom of expression. That is, the freedom to express his beliefs and thought is a person's human right. That's about the right to public assembly. That is, the peaceful assembly is also a human right available to everybody.
That wasn't enough. You put it on. You just see, don't look at the documents that you can learn.
Wait on the button.
Oh, you're in black and white. Last January, you have a point to make. Right? You're not paying attention. You're the people on the table. Sit down.
I have something to say.
That is the right to democracy, right to participate in a political process is also the human right of every individual. That is the human right with respect to social security. This social security refers to the welfare rights of the individual. Every person has a right to a dignified living.
Now, Krista, make sure you stay with her the whole time. She's new to the country. This is her first
Mom,
day. This
Mom,
is a brand
Mom,
new country.
Mom,
It's a whole different
it's gonna
culture.
be okay.
Now, make sure you stay with her the whole time. I'll be here right
Okay.
after school to pick you up.
Okay, Mom.
Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignore my mom. She's so annoying. She's totally freaking out about this whole thing. She freaks out about everything. She always does that. Ugh. Ignore my mom. So, you ready for your first day in the Wicked Castle of Doom? I mean, like, seriously, it's so boring. I don't know how they could put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
That's about right to education. Education is a process by which the personality of the individual blossoms. Right to education is also a basic human right.
These are your human rights. There are 30 of them. They belong to you. You don't have to buy them, or apply for them, or ask permission to have them. They're just yours. No matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, or anything else. It's just that simple. Now, some people may try to ignore your rights, or violate them, or pretend they don't exist. But they can't change the fact that they are yours. Human right number 30. No one can take away your human rights. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Well, that talks about the human right which belongs to everybody, irrespective of the caste, creed, ideology, age, gender, any such consideration. Nobody can take away human right, and nor is it granted to you as any concession. That belongs to every human being. And these videos are very informative videos. They are from the organization Youth for Human Rights International. All credits goes to them for this excellent presentation of the human rights through the videos. Now let's make a quick summary of the human rights which we discussed through videos. The first thing is that we are all born free and equal. That means everybody is born as a free citizen and equal with respect to other, with respect to everybody else, with respect to his human rights. That means we are all born free and we have a right to have our thoughts and ideas, and we should be treated by every other person as a free individual. That is the first and foremost, the human right. Next, don't discriminate. That means discriminating discriminating based on any criteria is a serious violation of the human right. Discrimination on the basis of gender, male, female, discrimination based on any religion, discrimination based on the caste, discrimination based on creed, the language, nationality, ethnic origin, all such discrimination are against the fundamental human right of every citizen. That is, we cannot be discriminated because of any differences. Next human right is the right to life. Everybody has got right to life. The life is precious and life belongs to that person. And everybody has got a right to lead his life without the risk or safety. Illegally taking away anybody's life is a serious violation of the human rights. Next is slavery. You cannot enslave any person. That means you cannot take anybody's liberty and force him to work or force him to do things which he does not want to do. You cannot have slavery in any form. That is, the slavery is a serious violation of the human rights. Next is the torture. Everybody has got a right to live without torture. Nobody has got a right to hurt us or to torture us. This right against torture is a very important, the human right to which everybody is entitled. Next is, wherever you are on this planet, these human rights are applicable to you. That is, wherever you go, this human rights doesn't cease. The human rights are not given by any government or taken away by government. Any of the territorial restrictions, nothing prevents a person from his human right. That is, wherever a person goes, he has his human rights. Next, it is the equality before law. The law is the same for everybody. Nobody is above or below in front of law. Law is to be impartially applied to everybody. That is, everybody must be treated fairly as per the laws. Next, the human rights are also protected by the laws. There are a number of rules and laws which are enacted so that a person cannot be treated unfairly. That is, the human rights are also protected by various laws and regulations. Next is about no unfair detention. You cannot arrest a person or you cannot prevent a person from his freedom of movement. That's what the detainment means. You confining a person. So that is a serious violation of a person's human rights. Next is the right to fair trial. Maybe the people are the accused. The people are accused of the certain offenses, but in spite of these offenses, the person has got a right for fair trial. That means you cannot punish a person without a fair trial. That is, the right to have a fair trial is a fundamental right of the person. Next comes that a person is always assumed to be innocent unless he is proven guilty. That is, in our legal system, it is a responsibility of the prosecution of the prosecution to prove that somebody is the guilty. So until the prosecution proves that he is guilty, he is assumed to be innocent. It is not the other way around. So you can't accuse a person and you ask them, you prove that you are not guilty. So we had certain the laws which were enacted previously. One was the TADA, and other was what is known as the POTA Act, which were repealed later. These people, these acts were very seriously opposed by the human rights activists for this reason that those acts put the responsibility of the defense on the accused. That means the accused has to prove that he is innocent. But that is against human right. That means everybody is assumed to be innocent until he is proved guilty. Next is right for privacy. That is, right to privacy is also an important human right. That means nobody should try to harm our good name. Nobody has a right to come to our home, open our letters, bother us, unlawfully watch our activities. These are all right, against the right to privacy. Next, some of the rights are negative rights, some of the rights are positive rights. So this is a positive right. The freedom to move empowers a person to lead the way he wants, where he is more comfortable, where he can contribute better. He has got a right to move. He can travel where he wish. This is the human right. And a right to seek a safe place to live. If you are threatened in your country, you have got a right to take asylum, take refuge in another country, which you feel safer. The UN recognizes the refugees. That means a person has got a right to seek a safer place to live if he is threatened in his place or in his country. And everybody has got a right to nationality. If a child is born in a nation, the government cannot deny the nationality to the child. Automatically the child gets the right to the nationality. So this is the human right. So coming to the summary of the human rights fall under different categories. Some of the rights refers to the personal right of the individuals. Some rights refer to enable him to make a living with dignity. Some rights enable him to keep and enjoy his privacy. Some of the rights refers to for maintaining his properties. Some of the rights refers to non-discrimination. Some rights providing protection against the harassment. Now let's come to the human right as applied to our profession. So that is, the profession involves its own set of the human rights. That is the right of the professional conscience. So these rights, the professional rights, empowers a person to exercise his professional judgment both on technical reasons as well as on moral reasons. That is, the right to refuse to participate in unethical activities is a right. With respect to the profession, we call it the right of conscientious refusal. That means if any act of the organization is against his conscience as per his moral principles, he has got a right to refuse that. That means an employee has got a right to refuse to do anything which he considers the unethical. The employer cannot force or employer cannot threaten an employee to do unethical acts. Examples of this unethical act may be falsifying data. Employer wants to furnish the data which is false, which the employee can refuse on moral grounds. The altering test results. Tests are to be objectively done, result and published. If the manipulating or modifying the test result is unethical, similarly giving bribe or taking bribe These are all an unethical act which an employee can refuse in his profession. In addition to these things, everybody has got a right for fair recognition of his work and receive remuneration for his professional services. That is, works are to be properly acknowledged and he has to receive fair remuneration for the professional services. That is also the professional right. Similarly, a person has got a right to warn the public about dangers. If any project, the activity of the organization is detrimental or dangerous to the public interest, then a person has got a right to warn about the dangers with respect to the public safety. A person has got a right to talk publicly about his job, but this should be done within limits of decency, confidentiality, and loyalty. A person has got a right to engage in activities of the professional societies. Every profession has got the professional societies. He can attend the seminar, he can contribute papers, he can perform activities with respect to his professional societies. The employer cannot prevent a person from engaging in the activities of the professional societies. Well, friends, coming towards the end of the class, everybody is born as a human being, is entitled to human rights. No other qualification is necessary for this entitlement except the very fact that he is born as a human being. That is, every human being has got the human rights irrespective of the caste, language, creed, religion, ethnicity, or any such consideration. And human rights are natural. They are neither created nor can be abrogated by the government. That is, it is not the concession given by any government, nor it is a privilege which can be taken away by the government. That belongs to the individual irrespective of the government. Human rights are universal and inalienable. That is, under any situation, the human rights is not separated from the individual. It always remains with the individual. You cannot buy a person's human right, nor a person can sell his human right. And also, the human rights are interdependent and indivisible. You cannot compartmentalize and participate and separate human right and say this is more important, this is less important, this human right I'll give, this I will not give. This is not possible. The human rights is one. The entire gamut of human right is one. That is indivisible, and they're interdependent. The violation of one human right will lead to the violation of many other the human rights. And the human rights are supported by the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights adopted by the UN, and every country in the world is a member of this UN. That means every country has got an obligation to enforce the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the territory. These human rights include everything which a person needs for a decent living. That is the right to life, the right to liberty, right to conscience, right to thought, belief, and expression, freedom of torture, illegal detention, right to nationality, the right to religion, right to culture, economic and political rights. Hey friends, that's about in a nutshell what we discussed in today's class about the human rights. Now we'll have an interactive quiz based on today's class. Thank you.